Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. No race this weekend, but we're still excited you're with us. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing pretty good. We've actually got a decent amount of news, not big news, but enough to keep us busy. And we got some videos to take a look at. Then we decided, what are we going to fill the middle of the episode with before we do a Singapore preview? So we decided that being as Cadillac are making their debut next year, let's look at kind of the most, I think we've worked out since 1997 or 1991, there's been 7 brand new constructors to come in to the grid. So let's just do a quick rundown and see how did they get on and do they still exist?
and
Um,
and honestly, it's not painting a great picture for the first season of Cadillac, but we'll see. We'll see.
it depends. It depends. We'll see. So let's just jump right in. Now, there is sad news for Christian Horner. He finally got his severance deal from Red Bull, and apparently it was close to £80 million. So, like, I guess just over $100 million. But the tax man took a big chunk off it, which
Oh,
means
did
he's
he?
only he's only going to be left with about £52 million.
Oh, that's a
I
shame.
I just don't know how he's going to pay the bills at the end of the month. Like my heart goes out to him right now.
I don't either. It's like one of those lottery winners, and they're like, "Well, I'll do the lump sum," and then they realize the tax effect of it, and like, "Oh, that stinks. You won the lottery. It's okay."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh man! But he's also still being linked with a return now that he's officially left, and there's a rumor going around about him being the CEO of Haas. What do you make of that?
I saw that too. I don't believe it. I don't believe Gene would pay him. I know he's got this big severance deal. I can't imagine he would go to Haas and be the CEO there. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but what do I know? What do you think?
I think we're going to see him make a return to Formula One, and maybe this is just a way of getting his name back in the newspapers again. Not that anyone would have forgotten him, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him pitch up somewhere. I'm just not sure Haas is a great fit.
Yep.
We'll see.
So the next news is exciting for both Rob and I. Rob is a Ferrari fan, me as a Charles fan. It was announced or reported on this week that Ferrari chairman John Elkann visited Pope Leo. During their meeting, Elkann presented Pope Leo with Charles Leclerc's steering wheel. So first off, the Pope was born just outside Chicago, so he is affectionately known as Da Pope. And second of all, he was given Charles's steering wheel. So from here on out, I don't think Charles loses a race the rest of his career. I anticipate him going 406-0 for the next 406 races, all Grand Slams, because he's got Da Pope behind him.
Thank you, Brian.
So we'll see if that comes true.
In terms of feel-good stories, we had former Haas driver Roman Grosjean got behind the team of a Haas Mugello on Friday. I guess this was part of the tyre testing that they were doing there, I
Yeah,
assume, because we'll talk about
it was, yeah,
Ferrari
tire
in a
testing.
minute. So then he was able to use a crash helmet that his children had designed for him that was going to be his final F1 race, but because he crashed into that huge ball of flames, if everyone remembers, that he cut that season short and never got to wear the helmet that was designed by his kids, and now he did, and it was just one of those tear jerkers. It was a nice story.
It was, totally was. And I did not know about the helmet, so I'm happy you caught that. I knew he was going to do a test with Mercedes a year or two ago, and they got him an outfit, and then there was some reason he couldn't do it. I can't remember what happened. He was either sick or he had to be at Indy, or like they didn't do the test. There was something where Mercedes was going to let him finish on a high note, and they were
That's
unable to
right,
do
yeah.
it. And so this is great that Haas brought him back. I did not know about the helmet. I knew he was going to do it. I love the onboard at the end when he pulls into the pits and everyone's clapping along the pit lane, whoever was in garages. But then he pulls in right in front of Haas, and it's Io and Ali and so many of the team leaders. And it was just cool that they were there celebrating, a really solid F1 driver, a really good guy, and someone we're really lucky we didn't lose in that ball of fire. But in addition to that, what also wasn't really talked about was at the same Haas test, James Hinchcliffe got to drive the Haas as well, his first foray in an F1 car. So that was kind of cool because Hinch is a great, addition on F1 TV, but he's an indie guy through the years. He's a Canadian. We'll let that slide. And he's an indie guy, so he got to drive the Haas as well. So I thought that was a really cool test all around.
Yeah, agree. And then in one that kind of, I thought the headline was wrong because I read it and it said, I think it was on the BBC website, it said, Alonso said it would be very hard to retire from Formula One if he's not competitive next season. I was like, what? surely it'll be easy. If you're rubbish,
I,
then just
I saw
walk
the
away,
same thing.
dude.
Yeah,
And I was like, what are you talking about? So I clicked into the article, and actually, I get it. He said, if things go well, I think it's a very good moment to stop because I've been chasing a competitive car and competitive racing for many, many years. So if I have a very good season, it will be a very nice way to close my career. Yeah, that makes sense. He doesn't want to go out at the bottom of the. If Aston Martin bomb next year, he's going to probably want to stick around and wait until they've got a semi decent car, or can he get a drive somewhere else? But fair play to him. He wants to go out on a high. So
totally. I played basketball many moons ago, and when I played, you never left the court on a miss. You always left the court on a make. And
what
so,
did you have to like stay until midnight or
yeah,
something?
I mean, I shut the gym down every time. I shut the janitor's like, Sap, you got this. I'm like, I'll lock it up. In addition, friend of the pod. We've played this a lot, but not in a little bit. So.
This is Valtteri Bottas, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.
I didn't get last week when Paul was reporting from Baku. He was there, and then he wasn't. And I didn't really pick up on that too much because he had like that one report, and I think he was there. And then in one report, he was home.
It's the same in Canada, right? They don't stay. Once they know that he can't race, once Valtteri doesn't do qualifying, they just get the hell out of Dodge because he won't be able to take part on Sunday.
Well, Paul does at least. Valtteri's usually on team sometimes. Sometimes he stays, sometimes he doesn't. But I didn't know how close it was. Toto revealed that it was pretty close to putting Valtteri in the car because of George's illness. He was, as the Brits would say, poorly. And
yes, he was very poorly with a dicky tummy.
Right, there you go. We would call him sick. And so anyway, I didn't realize how close it was, but it was interesting that Valtteri almost got to run Baku for George. But George did a great job coming through that illness. I think we maybe didn't give him enough credit because all the witness protection. But anyway, enough of that.
And a little bit of a sad one. And I haven't Googled it today to see how things are going. But Lewis skipped the Pirelli tyre test at Mugello because Roscoe, his dog, was taken ill, and he seems to be in a really bad way. He got ill. Then while he was ill, he caught pneumonia. Then his heart stopped. Then he was revived. Then he was put into an induced coma, and Lewis skipped testing to go be with his dog. So and then Joe took his place. So. Oh man, I haven't had pets for years, but I remember we had a black Labrador as a kid, and when she passed, oh man, it was just gut wrenching. So hopefully Roscoe can pull through this, but there we are.
I think we all know how important our fur babies are to us, and for anybody out there who's gone through this, like you say, it's terrible watching your pet go through something like this. They're family. And so I feel terrible for Lewis, and I really hope, same as you, that Roscoe pulls through. When I read that that his heart had stopped and then they revived him as in a coma, like, dang, Roscoe, he's part of the grid.
He is part of the grid.
Yeah.
By the way, we need to bump the next story to be the final one because I think it's the one we have to end on because it's my favorite story.
Mine too.
So
mine too.
Okay.
Mine too. So the last thing about Roscoe, though, interestingly and not surprisingly, a lot of the grid really had a lot to offer Lewis as well. My favorite being James Vowles, who reposted Lewis's comment and said, "Keep fighting, Roscoe. Thank you, Lewis and Hart." Because it is a tight-knit community, and I know James is from Mercedes, and they have a relationship, but still, I would think you'd find anyone on the grid. Yeah. Even a 2021 Max would be there, wishing Lewis well on this one. So anyway, we'll save the next story for last. Speaking of Max, this was awesome. And a lot of haters on this. God darn it.
Oh my gosh.
So many haters. It drove me nuts. Max made his GT3 race debut at the Nordschleife Nürburgring, and of course he won. He had a teammate, Chris Lullum. They started third. Max took the lead at the first corner. He built over a 1 minute lead when he handed off the car at the 2 hour mark. There were a lot of yellow flags after that, so Chris still won and brought it home, but it was like 25, 35 second victory. But again, the yellows, I think, compressed some of that based on what I read. So he won in a Ferrari before Charles or Lewis this year. And everyone who doesn't like Max, who was out there saying, discrediting this, talking it didn't matter, didn't count, shouldn't have happened, I hated that. Yeah. I drove me nuts. I was happy for Max. It sounded cool.
I love the fact that we reported on it last week that he'd gone and done and got his permit the right way. He hadn't just kind of strolled in and said, "Look, I'm Max Verstappen, just let me race." Right. He'd gone in, he'd earned his stripes, he's got his permit. His move at the first corner was fantastic to go from third to first, round the outside. I watched the clip of it. I mean, there was carnage at the first corner as well. Max went round the outside. Other people tried to follow him, thinking, "Oh, I'll follow a bit of the Max action," and then everyone collected each other.
Because they're not Max Verstappen. There's a reason he's one of the best ever.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, can't we just be happy for Max? If it's in an F1 race and you don't, and your teammate, the person you cheer for, comes a cropper from him, fine. But just let Max go do his damn thing. Cost cap changes afoot for 26? Question. I saw this from not the greatest news source, but we've seen this a couple times. The reason I'm questioning it is the dollar amount. The FIA reveal concessions to teams ahead of the major F1 rule tweak, raising the budget cap from $135 million to $215 million for 26. That's a lot. That's a big raise. So I'm putting a little grain of salt on that, but I do think I've seen it enough places where they're talking about raising it. Agreed. I just don't know if those dollar amounts are right.
No, I thought we had seen this because they were saying that because it's new regs, if people don't nail it and they don't give enough wriggle room in the cost cap, you're just going to get cars and teams that get screwed into can't go anywhere because they'll have spent all their money in the cost cap developing a car that doesn't nail the regs. I think they want to avoid that where people are left swinging. Like me and you have said, if one or two teams nail it and everyone else doesn't, and they don't have the ability to spend more to spend their way out of it, next year could be really bad.
Really bad.
I'm hoping this is true, and they are giving it, because if you're sensible, you'll spend up to what was the previous cost cap number and leave the rest in reserve to see how much you need to tweak the car when you don't quite nail it.
Right. So. Right. Second to last story is a stat one. Substance. I love this. So we've been talking about the feistiness of the midfield this year and how really it's just Alpine at the back, and you never know what you're going to get behind Mercedes or Red Bull or whatever you want, McLaren or Ferrari. You got this big group of teams, and Rob and I in our 8 predictions for the last 8 races talked about it a bit. What I didn't know as we recorded last week was that Williams had hit 101 points, but that it was the first time in 9 years that they'd crested that amount. 9 years. Williams, a team with an amazing legacy. If you're newer to F1, they've been around forever. They've had some amazing drivers come through. They've been great. And then even when they were low, they still had great drivers come through. They've found talent and developed amazing drivers forever. But it just showed the amount of points or the lack of points they've had in the last handful of years. I'm going to read backwards. So again, 101 so far this year in 25. Going backwards year by year, 17, 28, 8, 23, 0, 1, 7. Oh my God. And then in 2017, they'd had 83. It has been a long time since the sun shone positively on Williams. I love this. Yeah, I'm here for it. I think didn't you have a Williams livery car or something at one point? What did you have?
Yeah. It's just, I've got a soft spot for Williams, so hopefully they can kind of carry on this upwards trajectory. Now, Williams, driver, obviously, Carlos Sainz, was involved in my favourite thing to have happened, maybe not just this week, but this season. This is just, should be made into a film. So, on Sunday, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz found themselves in a predicament on their way back from Baku. Bad weather hit the Côte d'Azur on Sunday, which prevented their plane from landing in Nice and the closest airport to Monaco, where they were going, and it forced them to be diverted to Italy. So did they get on the phone to their agents and say, send a limo, because we're big stars and we need to get home, and oh my gosh, I can't believe we got diverted? No. They planes, trains, and automobile did it and went and hired themselves a van. And,
a van, too. Not like they... They didn't get us. They had 2 friends, 2 of Charles's friends, I think, with them. I don't know, but they got a van. I mean, I don't know how much gear they had, how much luggage they had in the back, but they decided there's a picture of them at the hire car desk, and the woman behind the counter must be like, "Is this really happening?" And
she's looking for the camera, the hidden camera. Is this what's going on?
And someone took a picture, but the video of it when Charles is taking a video, he's in the passenger seat, and Carlos is driving, and they are laughing because they're driving a van, and not like a normal minivan or it looks like a van, and so it's
like
just
Ford. I would call it a Ford Transit.
Agreed. I would assume like a Ford Transit type van. And Carlos is laughing. Yeah. He's just smiling, and Charles is narrating it, showing the people in the back, and then he says, it's a 2-hour drive, we'll do it an hour and a half. And Carlos is like, no, we're going nice, we're going the speed limit.
Carlos looks so happy with life at that point. Like when he's like, it's like, look at me, I'm driving a van. It's like, dude, you drive a Formula One car for a living. How could you be getting this much fun out of driving a van? But it was brilliant, and it was my favorite story of the week.
Mine too. I couldn't get enough of the videos. When that first popped up, I was literally on Twitter just refreshing the thread, like, more, please, anything. Oh,
inject this into my veins. But
100%.
Anyway, speaking of videos,
I already had it teed up. Let's open the vault, baby. All right. Man. The Ryder Cup. Boy. As an American fan, if anyone's a golf fan out there, it ain't going good for us here in the States. We're down 406-2. That's my second time with 406 today. I don't know what that means. It's something in my brain. Anyway, it's bad. We're getting creamed. However, before we launched the Ryder Cup, McLaren had a great video where they put out on the Sky Sports F1 channel with Zach and Lando and Matt Fitzpatrick from the European team. It's the McLaren Golf Battle. Lando Norris takes on Zach Brown in a Ryder Cup challenge. Sky Sports F1, 6 minutes. So good. They are talking about Lando's golf and Zach's golf, but then they're talking about getting in each other's ears because the Ryder Cup is famous for maybe the only golf event where you really kind of taunt. You know, it's like it's teams and you want your team to win. It went over the line, if I'm honest, yesterday, Saturday. But you got to do this. And so Zach looks at Lando as Lando's about to swing and he yells, Russia 21. And Lando goes, dang, that was harsh, Zach. And I'm like, oh my God, that was, because if anyone doesn't know, that was Lando's opportunity to take his maiden win. And it started raining and he wanted to stay out on slicks. And he lost the race badly because he was all over the track in one lap. And he lost it. And so Zach used that as fuel against him in his backswing. I'm like, dang, Zach. Okay. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc swap video games part 2, because we have talked about part 1 before. What buttons am I pressing on the Ferrari channel? 5 minutes. This was great. Part 1 was fun. It gave Charles a little bit of little brother energy. But then they played FIFA in this part 2. They played a few things, but they closed with FIFA. And Lewis had a penalty shot. And Charles is staring completely at his controller to see where he's going to kick it. Just stare. And Lewis goes, are you looking at my controller? Yeah, he is. He's watching to see if you're going left or right with the kick. It was hilarious. And since I was on a Ferrari kick, and I'd actually seen this one earlier, the rule behind F1 driver weigh-ins, weight is everything for us on the Ferrari channel. 3 minutes, not real long, but it did teach me something. It was basically Lewis talking about weight, driver weight, the ballast they have to put in. I always find this a fascinating topic. We've talked about it over the years. I did not know they'd raised the minimum driver package weight from 80 to 82. So with your kit, your helmet, all that, you got to be 82. And if you're not, they put weight in to get you to 82. If you're above it, well, that's on you. And so 82 kilos with the suit, the fire suit, the race suit, the boots, the helmet, the halo neck thing, 180.8 pounds. That's not that much. So for like the tallies, the ollies and the Georges, that's a challenge. Esty, I mean, that's not a lot of weight to hit. But the thing that I really took away from it in 3 minutes is that Lewis gets weighed every day, all year. And you got to kind of be consistent because the team plans for you to be a certain weight. So you can't like rock up to the first race at exactly 82 kilos. And then by the end of the year, you're like, well, I'm going to lose some weight over summer break and come back at 72 kilos. And then be like, yeah, I really like the food in America. I'm going heavy on the barbecue. I'm going to close at 85 kilos. That screws the team up. And I never really thought about that. So anyway, Lewis, I loved it. Rob, any videos for you?
You missed the biggest video of the week. The rehashed dirty side of the video sandwich rant remix.
Yes, please share. Tell people. You're right.
I will. I'll add it to the video notes. I don't even know. Oh, because it had been thrown around on the Discord a lot about Ted Gravitz and the Mercedes sandwich again last week. So I thought, you know what? Every time we hear that, we trot out the old video way back when, 4 years ago, when we really didn't know what we were doing with video production. And I had those weird sort of glittery characters dancing for no reason whatsoever. So we just blew the dust off it and came out with a new format. And it's gone down really well. We've had quite a lot of views on that. So
awesome.
I might put that graphic, that not the name, still not the name. That could be T-shirt material. Thanks to Nimrod on the Discourse for suggesting the edit to the bottom of that. So
yes, thank you.
Happy
Nimrod.
days. Yeah, you can slam the video shut, the vault shut.
I want to slam my video in there. That would hurt. So, as Rob and I were talking this week, we realized Cadillac will be new on the grid next year. New regs, new team. We think a pretty good budget. We think they should be able to hopefully be somewhere near the top of the cost cap range. We don't know. But they have money. They have deep pockets. Money will be a common theme as we talk about this because we looked at the last, as Rob said, since, let's say, 91-ish, the last handful of teams that were new and how'd they do in their inaugural season. And we know past performance does not predict future returns. But still, if there's any insight into what Cadillac may explore in 26, let's look at some other newbies over the last handful of years.
Yeah, so I'll change the order on this so we kind of go chronologically. Let's start. We were thinking like, how many new teams have there been? Oh, there's got to have been loads, and we got all the way back to 1991 with Jordan, and we're going to have 7 of them. So it's not a big thing, and you'll see that a lot of these teams either crash and burn and disappear and never come back, or some leave a good enough imprint and maybe someone else picks them up and they buy them and they swap hands. So 1991, Jordan. They've been through multiple ownership changes. They're now actually Aston Martin, for anybody that didn't know. So Aston Martin can trace their beginnings back to Jordan. They came in at 1991 with Andrea De Cesaris and Bertrand Gachot, whatever, as their drivers. And they finished 5th in the constructors with De Cesaris finishing 9th in the driver's title. I mean, they've absolutely come out of the gate and smashed it.
That's amazing.
The cool little sort of storiette that's mixed into this is that mid-season, teammate Gachot, or I guess it's something like that, it sounds French or Belgian or something, he was sent to prison mid-season for attacking a taxi driver, and we covered this when I think we did Schumacher's Veiled Tales, because he was replaced by Michael Schumacher for the Belgian Grand Prix. The team received 150,000 from Mercedes for giving their young German sports car experience of Grand Prix racing. They thought they'd got a deal in principle to then get his services, but as history will show, Benetton swooped in and took him away from Jordan. There was a big old court case for it, but they didn't win. But yeah, so I think they had a pretty good first season. Well, very good when we look at some of the rest of these. So yeah, we hit it high there with 5th in the constructors.
That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts when you think about a team just coming in. Now, it helps when you grab Michael Schumacher for a race or two there along the way.
Just for one race, and he was brand new. I mean, I don't really think that probably counted for much, but...
Yeah, but still, I mean, if the stars align, you know.
Moving forward to 97, I think, is the next one. Stewart Grand Prix, Jackie Stewart's team, which eventually will get bought and sold and bought and sold, and will end up as we currently know them as Red Bull. You know, you may have heard of them.
A little bit.
They came in with Rubens Barrichello and Jan Magnussen. They didn't do too well.
Here comes
really
the theme.
Really bad reliability meant that if you look at the 2 drivers, they would have had the possibility of 34 classified finishes, and they managed 8.
That is insane because. As I have some later here, 8 of 34, that's unbelievable.
I was looking at the Wikipedia timeline of that season. It's just someone just copy and pasted DNF like multiple times.
I mean, that at some point, like towards the end of the year, do you just feel like, yeah, forget it, let's give up?
No, I know. Rubens managed to get 2nd place in a rain-affected Monaco. I think it was more to do with other people crashing out, and for the first time in forever, their car didn't break down. But they finished 9th. They didn't come dead last. They had 6 points, and they finished ahead of Tyrrell and Minardi.
How many wheels did Tyrrell have that season? 14? I can't remember what they're...
Oh, man. Where do we get to next? Right. Toyota, 2002. The ones that keep sort of coming into the sport and leaving. Now, they came in. They just withdrew a few years later. They're no longer active. They didn't get picked up by anybody. So they had Alan McNish and Mika Salo. Yeah, I remember Mika Salo.
I do too. I don't remember Alan McNish.
I don't either. No, they had, let's be fair, well, again, not a great opening debut season. They scored 2 points all season. And they probably thought it was going to be great when they first started because they scored one of those points in their very first race. I have to look at this one. Yeah, Ralf Schumacher crashes into Rubens at the first corner in the first race and just basically annihilates the entire field. They all get collected by it, apart from kind of Toyota who pootling around at the back. And go, oh, look at all these overtakes we're doing past all these wrecked cars. So, yeah, they got one of their points in the first race, and they were going to score one more all season after that. Oh man. Right, where have I got one more before you've got yours. So, Super Aguri. I thought these guys had been bought by someone, but I looked
I
at
thought
it
so
and
too.
no, yeah. According to the timeline of constructors that I found on Reddit, which I'm going to say is 100% accurate, um, they were not bought by anybody. So, Takumo Sato and Yuji Ida,
He's
How are
famous
we
too
saying
for
that?
not being great, but I can't remember.
Anyway, they were the initial drivers for the team in 2006. Um, Whatever his name is, Edie, it was seen as unusual because he was the oldest F1 rookie at 31 years. He'd not had any European racing experience and he didn't speak English. So, I mean, this was a cracking pick to go drop straight in. He was involved with a collision at the San Marino Grand Prix with Midland driver Christian Albers, sending Albers into like a proper series of rolls. He was reprimanded by the race stewards and they basically kicked him off and brought Montagny in revoked Edie's super license, preventing him to return to
Dang.
F1 until at least 2007. Yeah, it wasn't an inaugural season basked in glory. They didn't score a single point and finished 11th in the constructors with a best season finish of 10th place. So remember, this is back in the day when points didn't go down to 10th. So for anyone thinking, how did they not score any points, but they got the best position of 10th? It's because in the day it was only down to 8th. So yeah, not a single point. So
And
so far,
yeah.
in that little highlight of my ones that I was looking at, we got Jordan as an outlier that did brilliantly, and everyone else has bombed.
Well, I got two coming up that are going to bum as well. So in 2010, there were two teams that launched: Virgin and then HRT. We'll talk about Virgin first, real fast. Virgin was around for a couple years. It scored no points, and remember, I think it was '09 when they redid the points, so you could get 10th place and get points by this point in time. And so it was 2 years around, scored no points, finished last in the Constructors' Championship for the 2 years it competed. It then became Marussia. Actually, in the second year it was Marussia and then Manor, so it stuck around for a bit until about 2017. A little bankruptcy in there along the way, so not the greatest kind of overall legacy. But Virgin kicked off, as I said, for the 2010 season. The team's original car, the Virgin VR01, was the first in Formula One to be developed using only computational fluid dynamics. You may say, what does that mean? I'm going to assume it was cheaper because we're going to get to money in a second. The drivers were Timo Glock and Lucas de Grassi. They had the lowest operating budget of all the teams in 2010 of £40 million. Richard Branson said, money's not everything. They're determined to prove that via engineering prowess, great drivers, and a great affinity with the public, they can do well. Guess what? They didn't. And so in 2010, they finished 12th of the 12 teams. No one behind them. They had no points. In 10th was Lotus with a Cosworth engine. With 0 points. In 11th was HRT, who we're going to get to in a second. I need to spend a little time on. They also had a Cosworth, 0 points. And then Virgin 12th last, 0 points. I'm assuming because of the ties, it came down to HRT and Virgin both had 14th places, but HRT had more of them and earlier. So I'm sort of applying today's tiebreak approach, which is best result, and they
Makes
had more
sense.
and earlier. I don't know. Anyway, there were 19 races in 2010. There were 38 possible checkered flags. They had 17 retirements and DNSs. So they had a 55% completion rate of getting to the end, which I thought was bad until Rob talked about
About Stewart.
So anyway,
I
no
was gonna
money.
say, you got look at that 55% finishing record. Stewart would have killed for a 55% finishing record.
Unbelievable. I'll just say this. So if you look at it, Virgin, no money, no points, but they still weren't as bad as HRT. HRT also launched in 2010. This is intense. This is a hot mess. They'd gone back and forth and who owned it. They kicked off as Hispania Racing Team HRT. It was the first Spanish team to race in Formula One. However, in November of 2012, so that would have been the third year, HRT's owners announced they were looking to sell the team. They were unable to find a buyer, and 3 years, goodbye, they were done. They had a Dallara chassis. They used a Cosworth engine, as I already said. But here's the kicker, and this is my favorite part. In 2010, they had no preseason testing because they couldn't get the car ready in time. The F110 completed its first laps during the weekend of the Bahrain Grand Prix. First laps, they had Bruno Senna in the car and they had Karun Chandhok. Senna's car was completed in time for him to complete 3 installation laps in the first 3 practice sessions. In the first practice session. In the second session, he had 17 laps, setting a best time over 11 seconds off the pace. But then his wheel came off, and so he was done for the day. Chandek's car, by the way, they couldn't get the clutch or gearbox to work, and he didn't complete any laps on the Friday of that weekend. In qualifying, Bruno Senna and Karun Chandok set the 23rd and 24th quickest times to share the back row. Fine, a lot of teams have trouble. However, Karun was 1.7 seconds slower than Bruno Senna, which is a big delta. The bigger delta, Senna to the 22nd place finisher, 8 seconds. Oh, sorry, 8 seconds to the pole sitter, not to the one right in front. But 8 seconds off pole? 8.
Oh my gosh.
That's a whole week. And so it was just a hot mess after hot mess. They eventually would finish some races. They would often finish 5 places down. It was unbelievable. But they kind of put it together at some point where they got a couple 14ths out of it. And so Karun did not finish the season. He was replaced twice. Bruno Senna was replaced at the British Grand Prix, then came back. Like I said, they had no points, but they did finish 66% of the checkered flag. So the reliability increased along the way. They were just super, super slow. And in 3 years, they were gone. So it's kind of a common theme. All these teams struggle out of the gate. And the last one is obviously Haas. The team is headquartered hypothetically in Kannapolis, North Carolina, United States. We all know that, but we all talk about the fact it's not really a totally F1 team. They have a big Euro presence. In the first season, they copied the Ferrari as much as they could. They bought the Ferrari engine. They have a they have a design office in Maranello, which is, I think the design team just photocopies everything Ferrari will lend them. And it was described by many as the cheap way to enter F1 by just buying everything they could from anyone who would sell it to them. It was the first American team in forever, and it was Romain Grosjean, who we just talked about, and Esteban Gutierrez drove for the team. They had some points. Grosjean actually finished decently. He finished 6th, scoring 8 points in the team's debut. It was the first American constructor to win points in its first F1 race, so that's pretty promising. Gutierrez crashed out. All in all, Grosjean picked up 29 points.
Ooh,
and he was 8th. Yeah, and they en route to 8th in the Constructors' Championship. He had a 7th, 8th, and 10th. Or did I mean Drivers' Championship? I meant Drivers. So 21 races that season, the same 2 drivers the whole way through. Roman only had 3 retirements, 2 DNS. Esteban Gutierrez, 5 retirements. They did great, 76% finding the checkered flag. This is what I was referencing. They were 8th of 11 in the championship. They were ahead of Renault, Sauber, and Manor, who we just talked about before. So
and that's pretty good because those are established teams. I mean, Renault and Sauber have been around for years.
Forever.
So to come swooping in, I think if we look at that, we're almost bookended, right? And which is quite a nice balance to this, and we didn't even plan it. But our oldest one that we looked at, 91, Jordan, nailed it and absolutely got 5th in the constructors, and Haas at the other end have come in and got 8th or whatever it was.
8th out of 11.
And actually done pretty good in terms of reliability and scoring points. Just everyone else in the middle
disaster
sucked. If it's not a Mercedes sandwich, these constructors, it was a turd sandwich served on the bread of Haas and Jordan.
No one had any money. No one scored any points, and no one lasted more than like 3-ish years, give or take.
Yeah, it's crazy. And a lot of those just disappeared. I mean, look, we called out the ones that were still around and got bought by other folk, which was only a couple. Everyone else has just kind of come in, had a go, sucked, maybe tried to sell to someone else, and then disappeared. So yeah, I mean, it isn't great reading for Cadillac. However, like you said, they're coming in probably with much deeper pockets. Yes. They're coming in with 2 established drivers that know what to do. As long as they can be emulating something like Haas and getting 76 or north of 76% checkered flags, then I think they should do all right. I don't see them being like HRT and being 8 seconds off at the back.
I don't either. And I mean, they're buying the Ferrari engine for the first few years until they're a manufacturer of engines. So or however they're going to do. I love this. I love the chances. I think you got money, you got an engine, you got good drivers. Although the new regs throws in a bigger monkey wrench than we may see. So
but Not to these guys, right? Because they're not
Hopefully.
coming with an established car that they need to redesign and relearn and think about what these regs. They've only known the 2026 regulation. So will that actually put them into an advantage? Because all the other cars have got to almost throw away what they've known for
Right.
the past however many years
I
of these
get it.
regs and start all over again. So who
Yeah.
knows?
I
Who
don't
knows?
know.
It
Maybe it'll
definitely
go
levels the
great.
playing field.
It does. It does. And you know what? If there were going to be a team that comes in and makes a good splash in their first year, given what we've learned over the time there, this could be it. I think it could be Cadillac.
Yep. So that will take us back to looking ahead to race week again. We will be going to Singapore. So Singapore Grand Prix was held at the Thompson Road, which doesn't sound very Singaporeish.
No.
Anyway, Thompson Road from 1966 to 73 before it finally came back in 2008. So it had a big gap when it came back at Marina Bay Circuit. 63 laps of a 3.062 street circuit at night. Yes, not just a street circuit, but at night under the lights. This one always does look amazing when they do the camera shots from above because there's
Definitely.
just a void of blackness, just with a perfectly traced line of an F1 circuit because of all the lights. It just always looks spectacular. What do we have here? Alonso won the inaugural Formula One edition. This was Crashgate. This was Nelson Piquet Jr. being ordered to crash on purpose, so we know what happened there. It was also the 800th Formula One World Championship race since 1950, and also the first ever Formula One race held at night. So it's got quite a lot of history, this one, even though it's not been around that long.
It does. And a few other things too, right? Obviously, they get some animals on the track. Large lizards love to come out. It is incredibly humid and relatively hot. It's not the hottest, but between that and the humidity, the drivers lose an awful lot of weight. It is a taxing physical event for the drivers. So this is a really tough race for the drivers to concentrate on. It is not a figure of 8 track. It looks like it though, because there are 2 right angles that kind of come together right in the middle. And so when you look at it from afar, you're like, oh, it's a figure 8. No, it isn't, but it's kind of neat because there's this one corner where the 2 corners come together. And my favorite part of this was not the crash gate when it came back in 08, but they had a chicane in one of the areas, and they called it the Singapore Sling because cars would always go airborne when they hit this thing. It was a curbing where it was really high curb. And as you if you hit the curbing just wrong, you'd launch. And people, famous drivers would launch off this thing and just either destroy the car or somehow the car would be fine. And they'd be like, whoops, let's not do that again. So they've obviously taken that out, and that's no longer a feature of the racetrack. But for years, I loved it when you'd see the cars just hit this thing and then nothing but sky from their onboard camera.
Well, last year actually brought an end to this stat, but it had been known at Marina Bay for at least one safety car in every single year it had been held, with a total of 23 safety car deployments. And then 2024 came along and went, I think we're bored about all this now. Let's not bother doing any of that. So it was it'll end up being the fastest Singapore Grand Prix ever, and it won't even have a single safety car or yellow flag. But we had Lando, Max, and Lewis the quali. Carlos binned it massively in Q3 and caused a red flag to bring the session to an end. Lando actually converted pole to a win, which I think this ended a little series of him being given a lot of grief last year for not converting poles to wins. So he did. Verstappen and Piastri rounded out the podium. And like I say, it was the fastest one ever. No yellow flags, no safety cars. Albon and Magnussen retired, but from the pits, there were no crashes, nothing. So
I'm still shocked we had no yellow flags at all.
I know.
I mean, I get it,
Is
maybe
that just
not a
gonna be
safety
like
car, but
I was going to say, is that just like even a broken clock is right twice a day? I mean, are we going to go back to it, do we think, next week?
100%.
I can't see that happening twice.
I can't either.
I mean, if we look at repeat winners, I think this is, where are we? So Vettel leads the way on 5 at the moment. Hamilton with 4. And then Graham Lawrence with 3, but they were all non-championship ones, now that we know what those are.
Yes, we do.
And Alonso has 2. Ferrari have got 5 wins here. One of them was a non-championship. Red Bull and Mercedes have both got 4, and McLaren have got 3, and one of those was a non-championship. So, this is where my fart overhead comes in, right? For the last few years now, Ferrari have actually gone pretty well at Singapore.
Yeah.
We had the famous one. Was it Carlos Sainz the other year when he was the only like non-max winner in the entire season, and
Yeah.
that was in
And he was
Singapore.
keeping Lando in his DRS, I think, if I
Yep,
remember
yeah,
right.
he
And
was
he's
towing
doing
him
it on
along.
purpose. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know last year they didn't feature on the podium, but I just got some hope here. Just got some misguided hope
I
that we
already
can see a
told you.
prancing horse up and around there.
The Pope. You're set. This is a Charles W. I mean, just call it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I still got the. Didn't we both make a prediction that we didn't think Ferrari would win a race all season?
Well, I didn't know about the Pope entering the picture.
Changes everything.
It does. This, and you reference it quickly, but this is also not usually a favorite track of Red Bull. Over the years, their cars haven't really performed well here, just the way they're set up. And I think you would agree with me that they're set up for speed right now, not for combat.
Well,
and so
I think what we said last week. Well, yeah, I know the reference. I think what we said last week was, with all this kind of momentum of people saying, like, there's been loads of articles online now about can Max win the championship. I think next week tells us if that story has any credibility, because they haven't gone well here. They tend to get beaten in this type of track. So if the performance that has been unlocked recently is just for fast tracks like Monza and wherever else we were,
Baku, Vegas,
then if it goes back to the previous race forms where he's struggling a little bit back in sort of third, fourth, fifth, then no, he can't win the championship. But if this recent round of performance unlocks also translates to a track like Singapore, things are going to become very, very interesting.
I agree. I do think, though, as I'm setting up, 4 days out for my predictions on Wednesday, I'm probably not putting Max on my podium. I don't know yet, but that's where I'm leaning. Either. I do have the McLaren boys up there, but I really do think I'm putting Charles up there with them. So I don't know.
I might put Carlos up there if he's allowed to drive his van.
Carlos Sainz in a Ford Transit.
Just imagine coming down this back straight.
Do you remember when
smile bouncing?
When Seb grabbed that Marshall's scooter and rode it back with his helmet atop his head, and he was smiling and laughing and everything? That was good. Could you imagine if they got Carlos a big old white transit van and had him just do a lap?
He gets to drive them all round for the drivers' parade,
smiling and laughing. Oh, I can't wait for the Singapore Grand Prix. It's at a reasonable time compared to Baku for me, 7 a.m. versus 6 a.m., so it'll be a lot easier. And I can't wait for the race. Rob, anything else from you this week?
No, I think that puts a pin in it, so we can go away and I can get ready with a race preview poster and we can think about our predictions. And like you say, look forward to reviewing a race next week.
I am too. I really am. And I'm looking forward to everyone joining us for it. We'll talk to you in 1 week's time when we have a review of the Singapore Grand Prix. Be well, everybody.